Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to Dorset Council's General Licensing Committee on Wednesday, the 21st of May, 2025. My name's Derek Beer, and my Vice Chairman is Councillor Louise Bell, who's not, because she's sent her apologies. So may I have a proposal, please, for Vice Chairman? May I invite proposals for Councillor Jack Cheyne? Yeah. And seconder? Yeah. Anybody? Yeah, all in favour? Yeah, thank you. So Jack can be my eyes and ears this morning, so that'd be great. Thank you. The meeting's being live streamed and will be available on the council website after the meeting. By attending the meeting, you consent to being filmed. Can I remind everyone that when you're speaking, please state your name, the ward you represent, and speak directly into the microphone so you can be clearly seen and heard. This morning we've got John Newcomb here, the officers. John Newcomb, the Licensing Community Safety Officer. Laura Brewer, for the Food and Safety Team. Aileen Powell, Licensing Team Leader. Laura Eltree, the Senior Lawyer. Megan Rochester from Democratic Services, and Joshua Kennedy. Joshua, do we have any apologies, please? Why not?
Thank you. Good morning, Chair. Thank you. We've received apologies for absence from Councillors Louise Bound, Sarah Williams and David Morgan.
Thank you. Are there any other apologies from the floor? Okay, thank you. In that case, can I have your consent to confirm the minutes the previous General Licensing Committee meeting, and that was on the 17th of March 2025. Are you all happy with those? Happy to confirm? Yeah. Thank you. Do we have any declarations of interest this morning, please? No, thank you. And I believe that there's no public participation. Thank you. So in that case, we move straight on to the publication of the draft pleasure boat vessel and boat person licensing policy for consultation. And John Newcomb's going to introduce the report. Thank you, John.
Good morning, Chair. Thank you. I suppose first off, apologies for the snappy title of the policy. It's because we want to include all watercraft that are let out for hire, just to make sure that they're all safe. So rather than just calling it our boat licensing policy, which is sort of traditional title, we've opened it up a little bit. Chair, this is the next policy in our cycle of policy renewals. You'll be aware that we've bought licensing, gambling, taxis, street trading, etc. This one's been a little bit more difficult because it's actually quite complicated. There are existing regimes which are managed by the harbour masters, which capture the vast majority of the firms that let out pleasure craft for hire and skippers. But we do have a couple of existing schemes in Purbeck and in East Dorset, but they're quite old. The legislation is old as well, and as with everything, things have moved on quite a lot. This Act of Parliament goes back to 1907, although it was amended, I think, in 76 as well. What we're looking to do is just make sure that anybody that hires out equipment to go on the water, whether that's on the sea or in the rivers, within Dorset Council's administrative borders, it is using safe equipment, and if they're being taken out by a skipper on a pleasure boat, that the skipper is qualified, safe and competent. So we've brought this draft policy together. I have already consulted with our harbour master and also with our health and safety enforcement team. There is a much wider group that we're seeking to consult with, including sort of the Marine Accident Investigation Boards, the RNLI, the Coast Guard, and various associations, which are either regional or national. But what I thought probably best is to get a draft policy together and then send that over to them for review. And if there's anything that we haven't got quite right, then we'll bring that back to committee. I haven't put a recommendation to approve the policy because I'm under no illusions that this is just going to sail straight through, because it's too complicated for that. So it's going to come back. We're going to go out for a 12-week consultation. It's highly unlikely there aren't going to be any tweaks to this. But essentially, we're just bringing our licensing regime up to date. I have already arranged with the consultation team that after this meeting, subject to committee approval, we will start the consultation as soon as possible. And then, as with any of these policy consultations, we'll bring back all of the responses, and we'll set out what we're looking to change, and give committee decision-making powers on whether to accept those or not. I'm happy to answer any questions. It is a little bit different to our normal licensing regimes, but I will I will try to answer the questions as long as they're not too technical on watercraft, because I might have to come back to you if they are. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. That is particularly, I think it's particularly timely that this has come to us now, because as members will be aware, there's been some pretty horrible instances over recent months or years where the craft haven't been up together, or it's been felt that the crews weren't trained properly. So do we have any questions, please? Councillor Fry.
Good morning. Thank you, Chair. Councillor Les Fry, Dorchester West. John, a really good policy. Thank you. Lots of detail in there. The application forms for the captains or the people in charge of the boats, have you got anywhere in those forms where if there's been an incident, they've been prosecuted, or that you can capture that information to make sure that we're keeping the public safe when they take the boats out? I can think of, as the Chair has mentioned, some maritime incidents of note. Are we capturing those okay?
Thank you, Chair. Happy to answer that. It's a bit confusing, the agenda pack, because what I've tried to put in there is our existing regime. We don't actually have existing policies for Purbeck or East Dorset. What we have is paperwork and applications process, standard conditions. So actually we will be designing new forms once a new policy comes in, depending on the criteria. And already within the policy, it goes into some quite detailed depth. So we're looking to license vessels, so that could be a paddleboard or a kayak or a boat. We're looking to, so they would be, so category 1 vessels are sort of unpowered watercraft like paddleboards and kayaks, etc. And then category 2 boats are skippered boats, so there'll be up to 12 passengers with a skipper taking them out for like ply for hire, like a taxi really. Any boats with more than 12 passengers have to be licensed by probably the Marine Coast Guard Agency or other certifying authority. But once we start to talk about skippers, then we do some pretty extensive checks, very similar to a taxi driver regime. So we'll check their qualifications, we'll check their criminal disclosure, just a basic level, and then we'll check their medical as well. And within that criminal disclosure, I would expect that if someone has been found guilty of a gross negligence or manslaughter offence or you know, a health and safety at work offence or a pleasure boat licensing offence, that would come up on their disclosure, and then we bring that to committee for a decision on whether that should be granted or not. So yes, there is that, but not on the existing forms potentially, but there will be on the new forms. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Did you want to come back, Les?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, John, that's really good to hear all that. But can we try where we can to put the onus on the applicant to declare and disclose, rather than your team doing all the hard work behind the scenes to check people out?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yeah, that is quite normal, and I'm happy to take that away. We see in under the Licensing Act a declaration that's made. So in addition to the disclosure that's submitted with an application for a personal licence to sell alcohol, they have to make a declaration regarding their convictions. So that not only covers the interim period between making an application and issuing the licence. I'm happy to take that away and add that into the application process, yes.
Thank you both. Are you happy with that? We've got Councillor Kate Weller online. If we just do that one first, thank you.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Can you hear me okay? I don't know whether this works well enough. Yes? Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Can you hear me? Yes? Yes? Thank you. Couple of things, John. First of all, you mentioned unskippered, so kayaks, paddleboards and so on. Where do things like jet skis and so on fall between that? Because they're unskippered, but there's an increasing number of those going out for hire, very often with very little tuition beforehand. So just to highlight that. But more particularly what I am concerned about, and I have personal knowledge of this, as you may be aware, I'm the president of MV Freedom, which is the boat that goes out of Weymouth Harbour, that gives access to the disabled to the water. Now, that's a skippered boat with 12 passengers plus crew, and we adhere to very, very strict safety rules and so on. Last year, there was a very, very tragic accident in Devon with a boat that was not fit for purpose, was not skippered by professional skippers, no safety procedures were carried out, no life preservers were worn by the passengers or anybody for that matter, and the wheelchairs that were on the boat were not tethered in any way. So there were no safety procedures whatsoever. And it was really an absolute disaster and a disaster waiting to happen. People, as I say, the skippers weren't qualified, they weren't trained in any way. It was really quite frightening. So I'm just alerting you to that some organisations are beginning to think this is a nice idea and wouldn't it be wonderful, and it's relatively cheap to buy a small boat and then put people on it who really, without any real measures. So we need to capture that along with everything else that we're doing, just to be aware. I mean, we looked into it very, very closely, as you can imagine, we, the charity, because we didn't want to be tarred with that brush. But it is something to be aware of. Thank you.
Thank you, Kate. John, did you want to respond to that? Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. It's formed a part of our thinking, most definitely, along with a couple of other significant incidents over in Bournemouth and also in Haverford West, where some paddleboarders were taken over a weir and lost their lives. So just start off with the first question in relation to the jet skis. Yes, they're included within category 1. So if you are hiring those out, then you will need a licence, an operator's licence for us, and the jet skis will need to be checked by a competent person and signed off. And there's also requirement in there for some basic training for anyone using those as well. In relation to hiring out of boats that aren't fit for purpose, we've actually put in quite a strict regime for checking the suitability of equipment and making sure it's safe. So, and there's a sort of a rolling program that spans over a number of years. It's pretty standard practice, and hopefully it will weed out any sort of dangerous vessels. And then the operators that are hiring those out, there's the ability to check their suitability, their qualifications, and how, especially the safety equipment that's provided in terms of life-saving equipment, etc. So there's some quite extensive conditions on those licences already, Chair. But I do take what Councillor Weller has petitioned, and we very much agree, which is why we're bringing this in.
Would you like to just outline the background to the inspectors and where we'd be looking to get the inspection regime from?
Yes, certainly. So we've already got a number of authorised inspectors. I think we're up to about 5. And it's not a closed shop, so we're open to new firms as long as they can provide us with evidence of their capabilities, their qualifications, etc., insurance, then we will check and they can be added to our approved list of inspectors. And I actually, a couple of years ago, I went out and visited those and I spoke to them, and that formed a part of this policy formulation that actually, and it was then that I discovered just quite how complicated this all is. That's why I'm not expecting this just to sail through, because I'm sure we're going to have to tweak it. But yeah, we do have an approved list. Thank you, Chair.
I've loved these words you got up this morning, sailing and depth. It's all been very relevant. Thank you. Kate, did you want to come back at all on what John has said?
No, that's super. Thanks very much, John. I was sure you were aware of all these things, and I'm reassured. Thank you.
Thank you. Got Councillor Jill Haynes then, please.
Good morning, Chairman. Councillor Jill Haynes, Chalk Valleys. Very comprehensive report. I'm still slightly confused, John, and I don't really expect to get an answer now, but if we could have it in the paperwork when this comes back after the consultation, as to the bits that we're going to be able to control and the bits we aren't that are licensed anyway by other organisations, because that is slightly muddled for me in here. Possibly it's just my small brain not managing all the licensing paperwork recently. But if you could possibly just clarify that in the next lot of papers, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, it is confusing. So we've already got existing regimes managed by the harbour masters, and I've added in the harbour limits, the plans at the end of the policy, just to show those areas. And we've worked quite closely with the Weymouth Harbour Master, Ed Carter, just in pulling this together. So actually our conditions and indeed in future our pricing structure is probably going to mirror what they already do. So anything that's based within those harbour areas, so any company that's hiring out equipment or running pleasure trips will be licensed by the Harbour Master. So that's Bridport, Lyme Regis and Weymouth, all three of those together. We're talking about the rest of Dorset, but it is quite complicated, as Councillor Haynes has said. And so we're talking about inland waterways and other areas of water, including the sea, that are outside of those harbour areas, which is why we need an all-encompassing Dorset area policy. I think this is something that's going to be weeded out within the consultation as to who's responsible for what, because there are a number of other licensing regimes, the Marine Coast Guard Agency, etc., and then there are some permitting schemes, British Canals and Waterways, and so what I will try to do is I'll try and set that out nice and clear in the policy so that anyone who's interested in becoming an operator, and indeed the committee, can see exactly what we're responsible for and what other organisations manage.
Thank you. It's bound to be complicated as well, as if you said it, that what you're working with dates back to 1905 and 1976 is quite ancient, isn't it? Are you happy with that response, John? Yeah. Are there any more questions or comments from members? In that case, we've got a couple of recommendations, A and B. Can I have a proposer for that we start the process of consultation, please? Can we have a proposer? Thank you. And a seconder? Thank you. And is everybody in favour? Thank you very much indeed. And thank you, John. I would imagine this has been a really interesting piece of work to put together. Yeah, if not complicated. Thank you. And thank you on behalf of the members for making it so comprehensive. Thank you very much indeed. We now move on to bylaws for the regulation of businesses involved in acupuncture, tattooing, semi-permanent skin colouring, cosmetic piercing. Good grief, if the last one was long, this one's even longer, isn't it? All those things, bylaws for consultation. Laura, would you like to introduce it better than I did, please? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I'm Laura Brewer, and I'm the Service Manager for Food, Safety and Port Health team, and the regulation of piercers sits within my service. Good morning, all. I'm here today to present a report for the adoption of the bylaws for the regulation of businesses involved in acupuncture, tattooing, semi-permanent skin colouring, cosmetic piercing and electrolysis. These bylaws are predominantly to protect public health, over and above health and safety legislation in order to ensure that there is no risk of blood-borne virus transmission between clients. I have provided a report, but I thought that given the history of the regulation of piercing under legacy bylaws, it would be helpful for me to try to explain the background to why I am bringing this report today. Historically, these practices have been regulated under the Local Government Miscellaneous Provisions Act 1982, with separate bylaws for ear piercing and electrolysis, acupuncture and tattooing. In 2023, the Local Government Act made an amendment to the Local Government Miscellaneous Provisions Act of 1982, which replaced ear piercing with a more commonly used term, cosmetic piercing, to take account of the fact that people were not only getting their ears pierced, and to introduce a new practice which was becoming popular across the country, semi-permanent skin colouring, which includes things like microblading of eyebrows, permanent lip lining and eyelining. In 2007, the Department of Health published model bylaws which incorporated these two additional treatments into one set of bylaws which local authorities could adopt. The Department of Health model bylaws were adopted by 2 of the 5 district councils, West Dorset District Council and Weymouth and Portland Borough Council. When we came together in 2019 under local government reorganisation, Dorset Council could only regulate piercers under the legacy bylaws of the area where they were operating. This has meant that there has been discrepancy in which practices we can regulate based on where they are carried out. In 2022, the Health and Care Act introduced plans for a licensing scheme for aesthetic practitioners completing non-surgical cosmetic procedures who operate in England. The wording of this act meant that local authorities were under the impression that these new licensing regulations would include current piercing practices regulated under the bylaws. Unfortunately, when the subsequent consultation came out in 2023, it was clear that the government did not intend that this licensing scheme would incorporate piercing practices already covered by local government bylaws. Therefore, we are now in the position where we need to adopt the Department of Health model bylaws for piercing practices across the whole of Dorset Council's footprint, removing inconsistency in enforcement. We have put together the proposed Dorset Council bylaws, which can be found at Appendix A. So in summary, I would ask members to agree the recommendations in the report, which are 2. Agree that the proposed skin piercing bylaws be published for consultation. This will be a 12-week consultation, and we will be writing to every single registered piercer, of which we have around 700, to make them aware of this consultation, along with public comms, so that the public also have an opportunity to comment. To also authorise myself to make any minor editorial changes to the proposed bylaws prior to the document being issued for consultation. And then to recommend to full council that the bylaws be adopted unless the consultation has resulted in significant proposed changes to the bylaws, in which case these will be brought back to your committee to ratify. Thank you, Chair. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Another massive piece of work, wasn't it? I should think. Good grief, and very timely. Any comments or questions from members, please? Oh, yeah.
Councillor Lugg.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Whoops.
I'd just like to ask a question about how long businesses will get to re-register with the new scheme.
So businesses have to be registered just once. So if you're practicing piercing or then you have to be registered with the council once under the bylaws. So it's not a repeated exercise, and any premises which are already registered will automatically move under registration under the new bylaws. We will be providing for them bylaws to display, the new bylaws to display in their practices, which is a requirement of the bylaw.
Are you happy with that answer? Anything to come back with? No? Any more comments from anybody? Certainly.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Craig-Monks Bedminster. This is a subject I'm not very familiar with, surprisingly, but just a general question, really, and forgive me if I've missed it in the papers, but obviously we are updating or introducing new bylaws, and by the nature of bylaws generally, they tend to be quite local in nature. Are we broadly in line with neighbouring councils in terms of what they're doing too? The reason for the question is I just wonder whether our sort of tightening of the regulations may impact our small businesses in this area where BCP or Devon are much more lax. I just wonder where we sit in the wider picture.
So we have consulted with BCP and Wiltshire, and every other local council do regulate piercers under the bylaws. So we're not out of step with any other council area. Some have adopted the model bylaws, others haven't. I'm not certain what BCP have done, but I am certain that Wiltshire, for example, haven't adopted the model bylaws and can only register premises which are carrying out ear piercing, electrolysis, acupuncture and tattooing. This is going to be bigger for us so that we can actually regulate microblading, so semi-permanent skin colouring.
Thank you. Are you happy with that response, Craig? Thank you. Any more comments or questions? Yeah, so over to you.
Thank you, Chairman. I just wanted to ask the question, the licences, will they be issued for practices or to individuals?
So they need both. So the practice needs to be registered, and they also need to be registered as a practitioner.
I think that it's a good question. There's so many seem to be cropping up all over the place. Come and get this with a free packet of cornflakes or whatever, and it's right to get it up together, isn't it? Are you happy with that response?
Yes, Chairman, I think so. I think it depends on, of course, if the license being issued to a practice, they've got no control of the individuals actually conducting the operation.
So every individual working out of practice needs to have a practitioner's registration, and we ensure that they supply a picture which gets picked onto the registration, which needs to be displayed in the practice where they're practicing.
Councillor Weller, you have a question.
Yes, thank you very much, Chair. Cross-infection is one of my specialities in what was my day job, and it concerns me a great deal. Can you hear me now? Are you okay? Are you not hearing me? You're looking vague. You are? Okay, thank you. First of all, it says in the policy adequate sterilisation. I'd quite like to know what we regard as, or what the policy maker, initial policy maker regarded as adequate sterilisation, because that covers a multitude of sins. And I'd also like to know how frequently we are going to check this now. I will say at the outset that my experience is with dental practice, which is rather a step above again, but I do know that in that circumstance, shortcuts are regularly taken in cross-infection procedures, and there's a much greater risk from tattooing and body piercing, I think, even than there is in dentistry. So I'd like to know how frequently we then examine, and how frequently we check that those practitioners are still on their professional body registrations and so on, just so that we're keeping a check on these, because these establishments do pop up and disappear with alarming regularity. Thanks.
Are you happy to take that one? Yeah.
So I'll take your first point about sterilisation. So where premises are using sterilisation, so they're not using disposable equipment, we will ensure that they have a suitable autoclave and that they are carrying out suitable sterilisation of equipment for reuse. Then I'll go to frequency of checks. So when they get registered, they have to have an inspection, and the officers will carry out a full inspection which will consider their qualifications, their infection control qualifications, and the whole of the premises to ensure that everything is cleanable, sterilised, and as needed disinfected between clients. So we do that every time that they register. Unfortunately, it's a one-time. So unless we get a complaint or we have significant concerns about the operator, we don't tend to go back because it's not part of our normal working practices. But it is something that we have done. So last year, for example, there was a sampling regime nationally to look at Pseudomonas in piercing premises. And we visited all of our piercing premises and we took water samples and swab samples from all of the premises to check for Pseudomonas, which, as some of you may or may not know, is a microorganism which lives in water. And we found it in a few practices and we were able to provide them with clear guidance about how to remove it. Things like running the water, cleaning effectively, making sure that any water wasn't splashing. They weren't keeping equipment next to the sink, so it was getting splashed. So we are, whenever there's an opportunity to go out and ensure that premises carrying out these type of treatments are operating safely, we obviously do jump at those opportunities.
Thank you. That's really reassuring. Thanks very much indeed. Great. Thank you, Chairman.
So basically, you're going beyond your responsibility, which is good. Yeah, thank you. And are there any more questions or comments, please, from anybody? Laura's outlined the three recommendations, A, B, and C. Should we take them all together? May I have a proposer, please? Thank you. Just say your name for the record. Yeah.
Chair, Councillor Craig-Monks, happy to propose.
Councillor Jill Haynes, happy to second.
Thank you. And all in favour, please show. Thank you very much indeed. Brilliant. Thank you. We now move on to Weymouth taxi tariff increase, and I'll ask Aileen to introduce that, please. Thank you. Oh, sorry, I forgot to thank you for your report. Oh, thank you very much. Sorry, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Back to slightly more usual business from some quite complicated reports. The Weymouth Taxi, Private Hiring Taxi Association have requested that for the next 3 years we do minor increases in the tariff that is just for the Weymouth zone. So they've put together a proposal which is attached at Appendix 1, and this report is just bringing it to you to recommend to the Cabinet Member and Portfolio Holder for permission then, if you approve it, to go out to consultation with the trade. As it's the trade that are mostly members of the association, I would recommend it's probably only necessary to have a fairly short consultation, probably only about 2 weeks, because most of them will be aware of this and they will be agreeing with it. Then I have included an extra recommendation to go to the Cabinet Member and Portfolio Holder that if there are no trade responses, or if all the trade responses are in favour of it, she will then give us permission to go ahead with the public consultation, which again is a 2-week consultation. That's a statutory consultation in the newspaper with an advert. So that's it from me.
Thank you, Elena. Once again, we're not telling them to put up their fares, are we? We're giving them the opportunity to do so if they wish. I think it's really important that we state that, because so often taxi drivers, operators say, the councillor told us we've got to put it up, and absolutely not. So that's it. Are there any questions, please? Sorry. Oh, Jill. Thank you.
Councillor Jill Haynes, I'm sorry to nitpick. When you get to the tariff, 1st of April 26, second line down, it just says 6. Can we make that clear at £6? Because obviously we need to make sure, you could have the public arguing about that. It could be 60p, for example.
You get an extra star for doing your homework, don't you? There we are, thank you. Anybody else? Yeah.
What is a soiling charge? Sorry, I don't know what that is.
Thank you. It is literally, yes.
He normally tells me off for that, so that's pretty good. Are there any more questions or any comments? No? Nobody? Thank you. Again, Aileen's outlined the recommendations, 1, 2 and 3. Can I have anything more you'd like to add, Aileen, at this point? No? Can I have a proposer, please? Thank you, Les. Councillor Les Fry, and seconder? Thank you, Craig. And all in favour? Lovely. Thank you very much indeed. Now, there are a couple more bits to deal with, and one more that I'm going to bring in, if that's okay. We don't have any urgent items, do we? No, thank you. And no exempt business. We'll now officially close the meeting, but I just thought I'd bring this to you. I've had a number of people come to me asking or raising queries about... Sorry. No, it's not confidential. No, it's not confidential. It's fine. Sorry. Yeah. I've had members come to me asking about Ask Angela, which is to deal with people... I'll ask Aileen to outline it, but a lot of members have asked if this could go into our policy. And so it is something that needs discussion and more thought. So I've asked Aileen if she could outline, if she didn't mind, her thoughts regarding how we might take that forward. Thank you.
That's okay, Chair. It's an interesting one, isn't it? Because I am aware of press reports in relation to its effectiveness and premises that purport to use it actually not training their staff up and the staff not being aware of the scheme. And just for other committee members' benefit, Ask Angela is if you feel vulnerable and you feel threatened within a licensed premises, you can ask for Angela. Is Angela there? To a member of staff, and they should automatically know that you're in distress of some sort or another. Maybe somebody's stalking you, or somebody's putting undue pressure on you, or you've been a victim of sexual assault, or just feel uneasy because of a situation that you're under or in. And they should help you and assist you and offer you some sort of assistance. And what the reporters found when they went to quite a large number of premises, that actually when they did ask for Angela, the staff weren't aware of the scheme and were simply responding, no, there is no Angela that works here, sorry. And I think it's one of those things where, as a licensing authority, we're always keen to, especially for violence against women and girls, to make our nighttime economy safer. And we work really closely with, especially our late night establishments that sort of open past sort of 11 p.m. And we have a number of schemes. So we have a nighttime economy group, where we work with the venues and the police and the We Are Weymouth bid and the town council representatives to try and improve safety. And there's a whole host of things in addition that we do. We sponsor drink spiking kits, and we have set up a safe space in Weymouth Town Centre on Friday and Saturday nights. The Ask Angela scheme is not a mandatory requirement on our premises licences, and I'm not aware of any of our premises licences where we actually require a premises to partake in Ask Angela. But what we would advise, that if any premises are advertising that they're a part of that scheme or they practice those requirements, that they actually do it properly, and there's no point paying lip service to it. And so what we've done is we've taken that on board because we are aware of this, and we've invested quite heavily in a accreditation scheme called L Savvy. So it's Licensing Savvy, which was set up by the police. and we've rolled that out to our late night venues. We've actually secured quite a significant amount of funding from the Home Office through the Safer Streets campaign, and we've got, I'm not sure how many premises we've got on board, but it's definitely picked up speed. It started off quite slowly. We did a couple of meetings, and then we did a lot of visits with the police and with El Savvy themselves to get premises on board. And it's a little bit like best bar none. So you do a self-assessment on how good you are in terms of safety and policies and procedures, and included within that is your violence against women and girls and you looking after vulnerable people. And so actually that's picked up. The Home Office paid for 80 licences. I think we're up to about 30 premises are on board with that, but it's still ongoing. And so we're working with the police to get that on. I think one of our late night premises, not to sort of put them on the spot, the closet, I forget what they've got. There's 2 bars there, isn't it? Is it just called the closet?
One
now?
premises.
One premises, yeah. So they were our first premises, came on board. We also installed a club scan machine where you have to show ID and it takes a photo of you. And so actually that's really good in dealing with people that cause trouble, because if they then later get into a fracas or commit an offence, it's really easy for the police to work out who they are. So we've started rolling those out as well. So there's a lot of work going on behind the scenes. And we do give advice to premises that if, Ask Angela is a brilliant scheme, but actually if you're going to do it, then please train your staff and make sure you do it properly. And that forms a part of El Savvy, that actually they do that, and we check as a part of that process to make sure they are doing that. So yes, it's a great question, Chair, and yes, we are working towards that.
Thank you. I realise it was a bit inappropriate to bring it at the end of the meeting, but I was getting so many questions on it that I thought it would be good to make members aware. Les, would you like to, anything you'd like to add to that? Bear in mind, this is not a formal part of the meeting. This is just for information.
That's fine, thanks, Chair. John, do we actually have a suitable sticker, sign, marker that premises taking part in Ask Angela can be identified easily at the front? That might help participants, users, that they know that there's a premises that's taking part in the scheme, and that will help those also to identify those that are not in the scheme, if you get what I mean. A bit like a sign outside, a bit like a barber shop sort of thing, I'm thinking. That sort of thing.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Happy to answer that. Yeah, there are promotional materials that are produced by the Ask Angela organisation that manages it. Sorry, I've misplaced the name of the firm that runs it. Because we don't require those notices to be displayed, and we haven't got any sort of enforcement capabilities, if I roll back to one of our premises a couple of years ago that we had some problems with, undercover police went in and there were drink spiking, there were drugs on sale, and we brought those premises in for review and the licence was actually revoked. An alternative mechanism for the committee could have been, if those circumstances hadn't been quite so dire, could have been to recommend that they adopt Ask Angela and they engage with El Savvy and they display notices. Without that, it's purely giving advice, and our best practice advice would be, yes, of course you should put notices up and you should train your staff and you should look after people if they're vulnerable. I think without that as a condition on the licence, we wouldn't be able to go any further in terms of demanding that it's adhered to, but certainly best practice.
I think it's fair to say that most people running hospitality establishments train their staff to look out for all sorts of things like that, don't they? And if as an authority we're supporting them, then that's not a bad thing. Thank you. Les, sorry.
Thank you. John, is it worth, I like what you're saying there, is it worth having that Ask Angela as one of our routine conditions to add to a licensed premises, an appropriate licensed premises?
Maybe we're getting a bit too much detail on something you might want to bring back. This is just basically for information to say where we were. So if you're not happy to go to too much detail, I would take that.
Yeah, I mean, we're always looking to ways to improve our nighttime economy and make it safer. and I'm happy to take on board when our officers go out on visits to late night premises, and definitely it's already happening where they're partaking in El Savvy, to give that advice to join that scheme. Have you heard about Ask Angela? It's really good. There's free materials available, free training. We would wholeheartedly recommend it. I think if a premises have caused us issues, and there are issues with women's safety, drink spiking, drug taking, etc., then under that review process, then yeah, of course, that's perfectly reasonable. And I maybe we'll have a chat with our police colleagues about whether we can include that in our sort of model required conditions for such premises.
Joe, did you indicate? Yeah.
Yeah, thanks. I think one of the problems with it, it's a great scheme, but there is a sort of assumption that you can ask Angela everywhere, whether they have stickers or not, and that's the problem. So if we're going to do it, it should be virtually mandatory for all of the premises that we license, or it's not effective, because if you're in a panic and you're wanting to go to somebody for safety in that premise and they don't do it, it's almost worse. So I think we really need to look very carefully about how that works.
Thank you. If there's nothing else now, sorry, Joe.
Can I just come in? I don't know whether I might have just missed this, but as far as I'm aware, there are also other schemes available. I'm racking my brain at the moment. I'm sure there's one for domestic abuse where you can walk into a shop and ask for somebody, and they'll give you support within there. And I'm just wondering how many schemes we've got around are like that. And I know they're all voluntary and people sign up for them, but I'm just getting a little bit concerned if we've got several different schemes for different things. And I know there's also ones available for dementia and that sort of thing.
That's what worried me. If we went to some, just highlighted one, there are so many other schemes like looking out for someone who's a bit suicidal or different things that go with Samaritans. But yeah, John, you want to come back?
Thank you, Chair. We also have a scheme for young vulnerable girls called the Pineapple Project, which is run through Children's Services and Youth Outreach, which is brilliant, which is locally based, which we support as well. I just sort of thinking off the cuff. Aileen and myself yesterday were having a discussion. We're bringing our licensing policy. So Licensing Act 2003, it will be expiring, I think it's in February next year. So that will be coming to committee. I think we'll take a look at this as a part of that review, and we'll have a look at what's available and what we might recommend. And we may add in some model condition options for committee within the appendix at the end of that.
Thank you very much. I hope that was a useful little discussion. Sorry, over to yourself.
Councillor Cathy Lugford, and just a quick point. I'm not in favour of bar staff wearing badges with advertising the scheme, because if a man's got a bad intention towards a woman and he sees that, he's going to stop her going to the bar. So, it's counterproductive. The posters are usually in the ladies' loos so that the lady knows that the scheme is operative, but I don't think there's any value in advertising it to anybody else.
Thank you. Well, as we've heard, the team are going to have a look at that and it'll be part of what comes back to us in February. But because of the large number of members that have got in touch with me about it, I thought it was perhaps inappropriate, but the right time to do that today. John.
I'm not going to go into any details, Chair, but as you know, as part of my service area, I also look after community safety. There are police operations, plainclothes police staff in nighttime economy looking out for this type of behaviour, and then dealing with that, and that comes through the licensing team, comes back to us. And if there are premises that aren't managing their properties properly, then that comes to the fore very quickly. And there is a current operation which is looking at this, and so there's already work underway, but we probably don't sort of shout about it too much, but for obvious reasons. Thank you, Chair.
With that, thank you for your attendance this morning. Thank you. That was what a varied agenda we had. Thanks for the officers for putting that together, and thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.